morning everyone, it's Carol here at Oak House Journal. Thank you so much for joining me. It's always lovely to have you with me, and thank you for coming back to my channel to see what I've been up to over the last couple of days. As you can see, I've got some tags here that I want to share with you. This is not a new idea. If you watch Heather over at ROSEHILL Paper Cottage, you will know that Heather created a design very similar to this, not identical but very similar, and I used that design in the 50 stack challenge to alter a guest check. Now I'll put the link to Heather's channel in the description box below the video. If Heather is new to you, please go and check her channel, because if you remotely like these, you will love what Heather does. She does the most amazing work, and as you can tell, I'm a huge fan of Heather's. I will also put the link in the description box below to this altered guest check, because it's slightly different from Heather's design. I adapted it slightly to include a discreet or a hidden pocket, and these tags, whilst they all might look the same, they're not. They're all slightly different. They're all slight variations on the same design that Heather did initially. So very quickly, let me show you. There is a flap at the bottom. All of these are made from a single sheet of paper. It's genius. I love this design. So as I say, there is a little flap at the bottom here. The way you fold your papers gives you a couple of little pockets. Then there is this flap on the front, and if you open it up, this is the inside of the altered guest check, and as you can see, I've just snuck in a little discreet pocket on the left hand side here with a little journaling card tucked away in the pocket there. It is so simple. It's adorable in its simplicity, and as you can see, that's the altered guest check on the back. So if I just quickly pop these back into the pockets, they or the pocket is secured with a little Tim Holtz paper clip, but equally you could put a little wee belly band along the bottom here if that's what you wanted to do. You could also use magnets. I didn't, I just went for the easy option, which was a Tim Holtz paper clip. So these are exactly the same design, but just changed up a little bit. As you can see, they've all got the pockets at the bottom, and they are slightly different inside, and the way I've done some of the ruffles and bits and bobs. I will go through each one of these in a moment or two, but let me just quickly show you the folds necessary for you to create your base, and then I will show you how I've decorated these tags. So let me put these to one side. The joy of this design is that it's made from a single sheet of paper, and because of that, you don't need to measure at all. You can if you want to, but you don't need to. You can eyeball it all, and because of that, you can make your tag to whatever size you want. I've made these tags all to the size of a Ranger size 8 manila tag. If you are creating one of the tall, skinny vintage document style journals, you can equally make your tags smaller, or if you prefer a bigger, taller tag, then you can do the same. It all just depends on your size of paper. Now I'm using a sheet of vintage handwritten document. Equally, you could use scrapbook paper, you could use a digikit printed onto copier paper, you could even use a book page. It doesn't need to be a single sheet. You can join it together. All you need to do is make sure that the piece that you're using ideally is double-sided and is ideally 3 times wider than the tag you want to create. Now, as I said, there's no need to do any measuring if you don't want to. Because I'm using a piece of a vintage document, I want to make sure that this edge on my left hand side is quite thick, because this is delicate paper. So this first fold is optional. This edge here will be the edge to my discreet or hidden pocket. Now, if your paper is thick enough, for example, if you're using scrapbooking paper, then you won't need to reinforce this edge and you won't need to do this optional fold. fold. Another way is actually maybe to put a piece of paper inside here, or to reinforce this left hand edge with some lace. I'm just choosing to turn it in. The other thing I ought to mention to you before I actually start folding is that you can fold either from left to right or right to left, depending on how you want your flaps to come out. I chose for my tags to fold from the left to the right. Okay, let's get going. This first fold, as I said, is an optional fold, and I will be gluing that edge down. Your first fold needs to be about 2/3 or 3/4 of the way across your tag. And as I keep on saying, you don't need to measure it, you can just eyeball it. So I'm just going to put my tag inside my piece of paper and fold it across. Now, that's a little bit too much, so I'm going to do it that much. And then all you need to do is fold again. And this time I've got my piece of card or my tag inside that first fold and just fold it over. Now this second fold needs to go all the way across so that it is the full width of the tag. And then your third fold is this piece here. And this piece, again, doesn't need to come all the way across. You can take it as far across as you want because it will create this little flap here. And if I open that up, take these out again for you to have a look at, it will create this little flap here, like that. So you can take that as far across as you want. Now, if I was using this document to create another one of these tags, then what I would probably do is I would probably fold that over like that. Again, another optional fold, and just take it about there, which is about 3/4 or 2/3 of the way across my tag. Okay, so those are your folds, and very, very quickly, your first fold, if you're using delicate paper, is an optional fold and is nothing more than reinforcing that left-hand edge. Then from there on in, your first fold needs to be 2/3 or 3/4 of the way across the tag, whatever size you want it to be. Just flip it over again. Your next fold goes all the way across your tag, and your last piece again doesn't go all the way across your tag. It goes 2/3 or 3/4 or whatever you want across your tag, like that. Okay, now as you can see, I have got a piece of paper here that is a lot taller than my tag. Now I don't want my particular tag to be as tall as this. You need to make sure that you have a little bit at the bottom that you can fold up that will create your pocket or your little pockets at the bottom of your tag. Whatever size you want those pockets to be is entirely up to you. I just roughly eyeball what was pleasing to me. What you do need to make sure is that if you've got more paper than you need at the top, then you chop it off, and I would be chopping off all of that amount there because I wouldn't need it. Okay, and that is your basic tag, because once you fold all of this up like this, get that piece coming across there, you've got your bit at the bottom that folds up, and you just secure this little piece here however you want to secure it, and these pieces you just ruffle down as you like to create your pockets. And as you can see, I've just rolled them down roughly, just using my thumbs just to ruffle them up and roll them down. You might choose, like I have on, which one is it, this one, to put a piece of decorative paper inside your pieces here if you want to. If, for example, like on this one, it's plain and you don't have a piece of handwriting that will actually show. So how you change them up is entirely up to you. So that's the basic fold, and as I've said to you, that portion up there would be lost. Now what I like to do on mine is I like to, on this first flap, just make a crease and tear away a diagonal portion. And the reason I like to do that, you might choose not to do it, and on one of the tags that I'll show you in a minute, I haven't done it. The reason I like to do it, if I am going to do it, is so that it will show whatever paper I've used in the side here to decorate, so that you get a hint of that showing through. And as you can see, I've just married it up with a little label there, and I've lost my paper clip. Where's it gone? Okay, let's use this one. Okay, so let me just show you the tags that I have created, and then you can see how I have just changed up the design a little bit more from when I did this altered guest check and made that discreet little pocket. I'm just popping in my little bits of embellishment. Okay, so let me set this to one side. Oh, I should mention that once you've done all your folds and you've folded up your little bit at the bottom there, to reduce the bulk a little bit, I've just taken away this bottom section down here. I've just ripped it away so that it just reduces the bulk a little bit inside. You don't need it, and when you create your pockets, I think it's going to get in the way, so I've just taken that portion away. All right, let's go through the tags themselves and I can show you what I've done. So on this one, if I take away my little paper clip, pull out my little embellishments, they're just little cards. I have used one of the Chapter 1 digital kits. They have a lovely, almost vintage Victorian style bouquets that you can fussy cut out. And I've got a box of them off to one side here that I started cutting out, and these are absolutely gorgeous. Now I will say that my printer does not print particularly well at the moment. It's a little bit poorly, so these are not the best that they could be. Trust me, if your printer is any degree better than mine, these will be lovely. They are, I think I've printed these out 2 to a page. They are a little bit fussy to cut out, but then that's the nature of fussy cuts. But what I found with mine is that if I gave them a little dab over, either with glossy accents or the Ranger Clear Rock Candy Crackle Paste, I always have to think about how to say that, it really makes the colours pop, and these are absolutely gorgeous now. So this is my little flap that comes down, and I've used a vintage photo frame that I reduced in size and photocopied to put a photo behind. I've done a ruff of lace with some stitching, and at the top I've again used some of the voile that I've roughed at the bottom here and a little bit of lace. And if I open it up, as you can see, I've used some Florentine wrapping paper for inside here. I've used a little bit of text there and a little bit of text down this side. And then if I open it up, I've created the pocket here on the left hand side, and because this was a photocopy of a vintage document, it was only done on photocopier paper, which is quite lightweight. And so what I've done is I've turned the edge over, same as I've shown you, to reinforce, and I've also sewn a bit of lace down that. Because it was photocopier paper, I backed it with the Florentine paper, and then I've just made a rough journaling spot for in the centre there. And if I flip it over, that's what it looks like on the back. So that was my first one. And then I moved on to this one, and this one I used a genuine vintage document. I've used another one of the Chapter 1 flowers down there, a little card here, which I've just backed with some vintage paper. Used the Florentine paper to line the inside of one of the pockets. So if I pull my flap down. Here's my flap, but instead of like this one opening that way, this one opens this way to the left. Again, I've done a ruff of lace along the bottom, a little card, a little button, same photo frame that I used for this one, a little label up there, and then, as I say, opens to the left. I've made this a journaling spot with a little label there. This is my flap, and again I've put another label on the bottom. Now I should mention that with all of mine I've chosen to stitch, but that's just purely because I love stitching. You don't need to do that at all. So if I open this flap out here, I have got a tuck spot in there. I have created a tuck spot down at the bottom here, so one of my little vintage letters could go in the bottom there. As you can see, I've put an eyelet at the top here. I didn't do that on this one. I put the lace on the actual photo frame. If I open it up again, I've got another tuck spot here. I've got a journaling spot there. I've got a little label there. Again, the pocket I've reinforced, and then I put some lace down the side, and that also could be a tuck spot if I wanted it to be. And then I have a pocket there as well, so one behind the lace. And the reason I wanted lace there was because there is the notary seal at the top of that vintage document, and I wanted that showing through. And then this is just a bigger photograph that I've printed onto Kodak glossy paper, and it's a bigger photograph of this one because I thought she looked lovely and I wanted her dress to be seen. Stitched around it and put it on an ex libris printed piece of paper. So this one just closes up. I'm going to leave that in there, just move the lace out the way, close that flap over, bring this one up. Actually, what I like to do is I like to bring this up so that my lace actually helps to hold it closed, and my paper clip can go on either side, so I'm going to put it on this side there. So that's that one. And then this one is different again. I've put a label at the bottom. As you can see, I've actually put some paper on the front of the pocket. Let's take away the paper clips. Lift out these two little things. There's my flap. I've also got a paper clip up here with some voile on it, so I'm going to lift that out. This is my front flap, and what I've done with this one is I've just put some vintage voile over the top. I've made a little frayed edge here, and I've glued the lace embellishment down on the left hand side, and that just lies across there. And when the pocket is closed and my bits and bobs are in the pocket, that is held in place. I just thought it softened down the image a little bit. If I flip it open, then I've made a journaling spot inside. I've used a little bit of that lace trim, and then I've just got a little card that hopefully peeps out the top. And if I open my flap out, this is what it looks like inside. Again, I've got some more vintage voile here showing that notary seal. I've got a full size sheet of some decorative paper on all of these. As I showed you, I've cut away that top corner. This one I've left full size, and I've just ruffled down the corner a little bit. This opens, and I've got a vintage document here. If I turn that round, you can see how gorgeous that is. Look at that, isn't it lovely? And it's got a stamp on it. And then this lifts up and you've got a journaling spot there. Close that up like that, and that just folds over there. This opens out this way, and here I've again put another vintage document. Now what I've done with this one is I've just tucked it into itself. So let me show you. I've stitched down here, and I can pull that back, and you have, if I move this across, you have all of this area as a journaling space, if that's what you want to do with it. I've got a little tuck spot in there, and that's where the document actually folds into. If I just lift it up a little bit, it just slots underneath like that. So if I pull that out, you can see. So it's just tucking underneath that area in there. So I've got a tuck spot, and I've also got somewhere for my document to go. And this is the original pocket. So if I just pull my bits and bobs out of that pocket, I'm going to put that back in there. And this is what I've got in that original pocket. Now this is from, I think it's from the French Cottage ephemera kit that Chapter 1 do. So this is just one of their tags, and all I've done is I've backed it with some vintage paper, and I've also got here a vintage document. I've just folded it into itself. There we go. If I open it up, this is a vintage document from 1850. Not sure what that squiggle is supposed to represent, but an absolutely gorgeous French document. And this is, as you can see, very, very thin paper, a little bit of a tear at the bottom there, and I'm putting the tag on the top just to help protect it a little bit more, and that's going into that back pocket there. So as I say, that folds over. You've got this folds over, this just sits up in there like that, just to give a little hint of colour. This folds up. I've got my little piece of voile and my paper clip here, and I'm just using that to help hold that closed, for the simple reason that I've got this in the top there and it actually takes up some space. My voile is held across there. These are my little pieces to tuck in my pockets like so, and here's my little Tim Holtz paper clip just to hold my pocket closed, or my flap closed at the bottom. And then if I flip it over, I've created a pocket on the back just using some more of that paper. I've lined it so that I can have a bit of a ruff there. There's my vintage document paper at the back, and then I was very lucky to have some of these vintage voile samples. So this is one, as you can see, very, very fine. And what I've done with this one is I've just stitched round it, and over the top I've actually put a piece of paper and glued that down, and the voile is underneath. You can hardly see it, and that's what it looks like on the reverse if I flip this one over. These two were on the same sheet of paper, so I've made this one slightly smaller so that I could use it to tuck in the back pocket there. So there we go, everybody. That's my 3 little tags that I thought I would share with you. But there are oodles and oodles of options with this one paper or one page design that Heather came up with. Absolute genius. Love it. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. Have a great bank holiday weekend and take care. Bye bye now.